Fort Knox, now Fort Knox State Park or Fort Knox State Historic Site, is located on the western bank of the Penobscot River in the town of Penobscot, Maine. It's about 5 miles from the mouth of the river. It was built between 1844 and 1869. It was the first fort in Maine built of granite instead of wood. It is named after Major General Henry Knox, the first U.S. Secretary of War and Commander of Artillery during the American Revolutionary War. At the end of his life, lived not far away in Thomaston, Maine. The fort was designated a National Historic Landmark in 1970 as a virtual intact example of the mid-19th century granite coastal fortification. Fort Knox also serves as the entry site for the observation tower of the Penobscot Narrows Bridge that opened to the public on May 19, 2007. See our video on the Penobscot Narrows Bridge. It gives you a guided tour of the tower and the bridge. Today is October 30th, 2014. We have exclusive entry while they prepare for a Halloween celebration tomorrow night here at the fort. We are the only ones in the fort at this time. Local memory of the humiliation of Maine at the hands of British during the American Revolution and again during the War of 1812 contributed to subsequent anti-British feeling in eastern Maine. The Penobscot Expedition of 1779 aimed to force the British from Castine but ended in a debacle. The Americans lost 43 ships and suffered approximately 500 casualties in the worst naval defeat of the United States prior to the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. Then, in autumn 1814, during the War of 1812, a British naval force and soldiers sailed up the Penobscot and defeated the outnumbered American force in the Battle of Hampton. The British followed their victory by looting both Hampton and Bangor. The American defeat contributed to the post-war movement for Maine's statehood, which occurred in 1820, as Massachusetts had failed to protect the region. The Aroostook War of 1838 and 1839 received anti-British feelings and concern over the vulnerability to another attack like that of 1814. Also, Penobscot and Bangor were a major source of shipbuilding lumber. The response was the inclusion of Penobscot in the third system of coastal fortifications and the construction of Fort Knox, a large, expensive granite fort at the mouth of the Penobscot River. Construction funding from Congress was intermittent, and the fort's design was never fully completed despite an expenditure of $1 million. Granite was quarried 5 miles upriver from Mount Waldo in Frankfort. Fort Knox never saw a battle, though it was manned during times of war. During the American Civil War, volunteers from Maine, mostly recruits in training before assignment to active duty, manned the fort. I can only assume that this is part of the Halloween celebration going on tomorrow evening. A regiment from Connecticut manned the fort during the Spanish-American War. The garrison was reduced to 1 man, the keeper of the fort, upon their departure at the end of the war. The keeper attended to the condition and maintenance of the fort and reported to Fort Preble in Portland. In 1923, the federal government declared the fort excess property and put its 125-acre grounds up for sale. The state of Maine bought it for $2,121. It is now a Maine State Historic Site and was declared a U.S. National Historic Landmark on December 30th, 1970. The fort had 2 batteries facing the river, each equipped with a furnace to heat cannonballs hot enough that they could set wooden ships afire if the ball lodged in the vessel. These furnaces became obsolete with the changeover from wooden ships to ironclads. Fort Knox, a non-profit group formed in the 1990s, reached an agreement with the State Department of Conservation to take over day-to-day operations of the fort, and began doing so on April 15, 2012. The state retains ownership of the fort as part of the agreement. The leasee runs through 2015 and requires the Friends to be responsible for all maintenance of the grounds as well as the interior and exterior of the buildings on the property. The Friends may also improve or alter the fort. Beginning in 2012, the Friends were authorized to set the entrance fee to the fort with the approval of the Bureau of Parks and Lands, with such fees consistent with the goal of keeping entry affordable for Maine residents. In exchange, the Friends keep 85% of the entrance fee revenue, the rest going to the state general fund. You enjoyed this tour of Fort Knox in Bucksport, Maine, and whenever in Maine, stop in.